mobile phone. When you meet your friend or somewhere walking on the street, they give you their number, their phone number, you put it in your phone. But of course, later on when you want to call the friend, you don't remember the number. You have to check the name. So the same thing with the internet, we have to relate an address with a name, and it's much easier to remember the name. So those two things, the address and the name, are both managed by ICANN. The third thing that ICANN manages is the protocol, the IP protocol. By protocol, we just mean how you define the way the communications are going to move on the network. Technically, this internet works on something known as packet switching. So the information is put in a packet. How is it going to be sent, and how does the packet look like? So that's the protocol. The old protocol was known as IP version 4. Now there's a new one, IP version 6. All that is run by ICANN. Finally, ICANN also runs something known as root servers, which are just big servers spread around the world that help to move the internet traffic around. This is ICANN structure, but maybe just before I talk about that, I just mentioned, when I meet many people, they're always wanting to know this issue about why is there so much kind of, if I can put it in quotes, a fight between maybe governments, private sector, regarding the running of the internet, regarding ICANN. So there's a question that I come around quite a bit, and some of it has to come from the history of to run it, probably under ITU. So there came a debate. Should the internet management be moved from ICANN to the ITU and so on? And the business people are not very happy to move it to ITU or to government agencies because of previous issues of efficiency of running communication services, which are essential for running businesses. So that debate has been going on for a long time. Between 2003 and 2005, there was an attempt which didn't succeed to move ICANN to ICANN services or ICANN functions to an agency run by the United Nations like the ITU. So that's some of the background that has been there with this ICANN. There's a requirement that there should be at least one member from every geographic region. The geographic regions are corresponding to the continents: North America, South America. Of the ICANN board of directors are nominated by or appointed by the nominating committee of ICANN. That is, they are called seats 1 to 8. Then there is another two board members who are appointed by the Address Support Organization. That's known seat 9 and 10 to the board of directors. And then the 16th seat is taken by the president and CEO. We also have some other members of the board of directors who are non-voting. They are known as liaisons. One is appointed by a group known as the Technical Liaison Group, another one by the Security and Stability Advisory Committee. I think these groups were talked about by Nelly a short while ago. Root server, RSSAC also appoints someone issued. And, you know, there was quite a bit of discussion about the wording and so on and so forth. I can tell you it's 1,000 times even more difficult to reach agreeable language if you go to the UN. They can talk about one thing and then they are debating one word in a treaty or in an agreement. They can debate that for a whole week, and even the week might end and they have not reached a conclusion. So if you are going to run internet under such circumstances, you may end up in a lot of problems in terms of efficiency, in terms of the way, the speed at which the businesses need to do things. So that's one reason we should be concerned there. Another one is much more practical. Can your business survive a failed or unstable internet? First of all, stable internet, you know, users all over the world, particularly in Africa, they take internet so much for granted. You know, somebody walks in his office in the morning, switches on his computer, and of course, as long as his ISP, service provider, is working, the internet is there. But it never crops in somebody's mind what's really behind this internet in terms of its management, in terms of governance. What about if it doesn't happen? I'll tell you a small story. There's some countries, you know, as we have been seeing here in the previous presentations, the internet has been run basically by the US government. So there's some countries, I hope our friends are around, they'll forgive me, but there's some countries that don't see eye to eye with the US. So what The other thing is just security. The internet needs to be secure. So for the policies that ensure that the internet is secure to be put in place, the business people need to participate in them, because there are other stakeholders on the internet who go there and they talk a lot, and maybe the interest is not security. I give you an example. The people who are dealing with, or who talk a lot about human rights, they go to these internet meetings. You'll find them in IGF, they open kiosks there. They're talking a lot about human rights. So they have their concerns. But maybe their concern is not the security of the internet. Their concern is something else, maybe for the internet to be able to serve some other purposes. So for us, security is very important, because if I'm going to do business using my credit card, I have to make sure that the transaction is secure and it's going to be completed in a proper way. The other thing is that internet is a new marketplace. So it's like any other market now. Forget about even the virtualness of the internet. Forget about it. By the way, just for the discount and also for the good work that he has been doing there in ICAD business constituency. Is that here? No, that's right. So thank you, and I hope I've been short enough. I was really dreading to hear the chair singing the national anthem, because I understand he sings in out of tune. And somebody sings out of tune and you're also hungry, going for lunch, you may not stand it, you may not survive.
If we look at Marilene's presentation, he noted us that the internet was created in 1969. But at the time the internet was being invented by those 4 universities, there was no issue of domain name. The domain name management was started by John Poster, as rightly mentioned by. So, why did John start domain name system? Initially, the 4 machines and subsequent machines were just running on IP, but IP became difficult to remember. Then a simpler way, what is much simpler, is a name. But there's a need to match the name with the numbers. So what John was done at that time was to put up a list, just a flat sheet that matches, this is the name, this is the IP address, and the list will be circulated among all internet hosts. He did that successfully for a while, and the list kept growing. I had the opportunity of meeting John Poster in McGill University in the early days of the internet. And each time we meet, the list kept growing and growing, and it became unsustainable for just someone to keep managing the list. So it became necessary at that time to have institutions that will manage the domain names. And gladly, I'm happy to inform you that Nigeria was one of the first countries around the world, and arguably the first, that institutionalized domain name administration as far back as 1995. Way before ICANN was born, there was Nigeria Internet Group that was formed solely to manage .ng. Way before any other country, many other countries thought of anything like that. But unfortunately, we mismanaged that opportunity. Midway into that, there was crisis, conflict, which is not unusual in human endeavor. Some other organizations within the Nigerian system, to be very specific, Nigerian Computer Society came up with an idea that being the computer society, they are better positioned to manage domain name. This one dragged on for almost 10 years, thereby slowing the growth of domain name in Nigeria, until it caught the attention of the former president of Nigeria, President Olufuye Obasanjo, who thought that was not the right way to go about these things. And he called the meetings of stakeholders. Death took away Olufuye Kalu. He died at a very young age. Happily again, we had a successor to Olufuye Kalu, who built a very strong organization, the NERA organization we are talking about today. and that is the immediate past president, Madam Mary Uduma, who is still there. NERA is now a strong institution. And NERA has a structure with the AGM on top of the organogram, and that is members consisting of multi-stakeholders. All the stakeholders are represented: academia, civil society, private sector, government. They are the multi-stakeholders we are talking about, and they constitute the membership of NERA. And that is the topmost on the hierarchy of NERA organogram. More important is that we have built an institution that will change the situation of things as they are now. I think the most important thing is to build a foundation before you start building blocks on top of the foundation. So what I would say that we've been able to do for the past years, although we did it very slowly, was building foundation. We started in 1995. ICANN started in 1998. So Nigeria started institutionalizing domain name administration 3 years ahead of ICANN, of the world. That's something that is very significant. But it took us much longer to build a foundation. And I would say that with the past administration of NERA, I want to consider those years as years of building foundation. So this is now the time to build the industry itself. And there are a lot of work to do to build the industry. To be able to move away from 50,000, less than 50,000 registration to like 2 million, 3 million registration, which ordinarily we should be having by now, judging from the vibrancy of our economy and our population. We should not forget that we are the largest economy in Africa, apart from our population. So that's a rented apartment. But NERA has its own building and is fully staffed, which means we have built an institution. So we now need to build the industry. And in building the industry, I'm happy that the current administration too is committed to building the industry. My own definition of building the industry is growing the numbers. That's my own definition. We should move away from thousands. We should move into the regions of millions. And that's a lot of work to be done. So a number of programs have been set out by the present very new administration of NERA to ensure that the numbers are fully grown. But we need also to look at what are the challenges before you start profiling solutions, before you start strategizing on how to grow the numbers. What are the challenges? Why are we just limited to those numbers?
How much time do you require left?
Awareness is pretty low about the existence of domain name industry itself, and particularly awareness on how to obtain .ng domain. Andrew Mark, when he was making his presentation, highlighted one of the challenges as a low market in Africa. And I asked myself, is the market really that poor? Is it that slow? But honestly, I don't think the market is very bad in Nigeria. Maybe in some other African countries, but not here. Because I've seen Nigerians making several efforts to register domain names under the GTLD, under .com. In fact, what will convince you that they love .ng, I don't know if you have seen it, most of them will write their name .ng.com. I don't know if anybody has noticed that. Like if your company name is Contemporary, they will write contemporaryng.com. Whereas the right thing to do is to register contemporary.com.ng or contemporary.ng. But for some strange reason, these guys still love .ng brand, but they don't know how to get .ng. So because it's pretty convenient to do .com, they will say there are huge opportunities in the business. Let me also say that we saw increased number when the administration of Mary Ujuma introduced a second level registration. Initially we were doing third level registration, .com.ng. But now we are able to do a second level registration. In other words, you can register, instead of registering contemporary.com.ng, we are now able to register contemporary.ng. That has thrown a lot of interest, and a lot of people are taking advantage of that. And I also want to say that, believe it or not, Nigeria is one of the countries that has also started second level registration. I'm not saying we are the first, but we are certainly, in fact, there are so many other CCTLD that have not even commenced that at all. The new GTLD is also an opportunity for the registry. If you are a NERA registrar, you are not limited to selling .ng. You can also avail yourself of selling other top-level domain names, including the new GTLD. So I don't know if I can continue or just round up at this stage.
Just round up.
Okay. So thank you very much. Rounded up.
Thank you. I think I want to register Afolabi .ng. You will do that because they are calling contemporary. Contemporary is the general outlook. I've always enjoyed it when I'm dreaming. It's always very nice. The houses I live in when I'm dreaming are wonderful. The kind of cars I drive are wonderful. They are nice. And then, unfortunately, I wake up sweating. But the first step in realizing any dream is to wake up.
That's the way I was put it. But the obvious is that they have not left that level. They were maybe there. And we need to bring them up to that level. We can't continue to be the same set of people saying the same thing. We need to get more Nigerians in. And if you ask me statistics-based wise, we will see that the industry players are just about 1% of the industry. And we need to move forward. That's the only way we can take the baton ahead and move it on. And of course, that's the only way businesses can develop. If young people are coming up with ideas, he mentioned the domain name, the .ng.org. And recently we were falling part of it. Even my organization, we had to do a new website. And my young people in the team felt we can't do .ng. This is the issue. And I told them I'm part of NERA. They said, Mommy, forget part of NERA. This is the one thing. And I think we need to move them on because the young people coming up these days, they are so innovative. They have too many things they want to put on the table.
Well, before I ask, I have a comment. With the .ng country code domain, I remember when it came up, when I became aware of domain names, one thing about the .com.ng was it didn't have any appeal for us. We had it then, and there seemed to be a push on government that government agencies should register .com.ng, and so it kind of tended towards a government kind of thing, but there was no appeal, and then there was no awareness in terms of people didn't even know that there was a .com.ng on time, and I just found out now that there's a .ng without the com. I just found out now at this meeting. So there was no awareness, there was no marketing from NERA saying, look, guys, what you can do, or trying to make it appealing. So I guess those were one of the many things that stifled the growth, the uptake of that. GTLDs, where maybe in the future we could have a .Nigeria or a .Lagos, is there really going to be is there really a hope for the .ng domain? And the way NERA was set up, was it set up to administer the .com.ng .ng domain name only, or to administer all kinds of domains that have to do with Nigeria? So if somebody was registered at .Nigeria domain, would it come under the purview of NERA? And in which case, should it even come under the purview of NERA, or should we push it towards the private sector and have some guys in the private sector try to push out these domains?
To start with, I want to really appreciate my big Oga. You raised issues on awareness. And there's another one I want to add to it, perception, public perception. Honestly, an average Nigerian is seeing .ng as a government way of putting us in the space so that they can monitor us and probably for tax issues or legal issues. And I have one case study. I was discussing with one of the top Lagos state government official who happened to be my brother. I said, why? I was talking to him about there's a need for you people to move to .ng and all that. The first thing the person told me, said, Chairman, forget it. You want PDP government to start tracing and monitoring APC governments in Lagos. So I think there is an issue of trust. There's a public trust issue, and there's another one I can call confidence issues. And I want to you to learn from the little story I will probably share.
Those are just my observations.
For facilitating the presence of some of us here. I belong to a section of the media that is owned by private sector people, and I know that if not for the facilitation by AfICTA, I may not have been here about the input that the media make on issues. The truth of the matter is that from whom much is expected, much should be given. What are the media asking for? They're asking for leverage to be able to continue to service the industry.
Down to the road of media. Media will create that awareness, will change the perception, will help us build trust on it. But I'm not suggesting that media should just take that one without any push. You just mentioned that its own media is from private sector, it's not owned by government, so it's for profit. So in other words, whoever has interest in that must do some little push. So NERA has interest, so there must be a push. And one of the pushes that NERA is pushing is what we mentioned earlier, like the DNSC Academy. First of all, get the media trained. And NERA has set up a whole academy for that purpose. It is NITDA to manage .ng. At the end of the day, if you go to the records, the name that you will see in ICANN is NITDA. NITDA delegated NERA to perform that job. NERA is an entity on its own, independent entity, not owned by government. It is owned by some multi-stakeholder people that came together and formed a non-governmental organization called NERA and applied in quotes to NITDA that we can help you do that your job. And NITDA said, okay, fine. We see that you are competent, you are multi-stakeholder, you have competence. It was delegated to NERA. So the implication of that is that, one, NERA is not limited to the administration of .ng. Responsibility in NERA to make it appealing enough for people to voluntarily to take .ng. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's actually not domiciled in IT. It's domiciled in UNTESA, that's the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs. So yes, and they're doing a good job. And also to note that Mali used that concept of getting all the government agencies to be registered with their TCTLD, and also backed up the free offer with some incentives, and they have about 1 million domain, and they're just 15 million people. So they met with the representatives of DAC of Mali. That was in Singapore the other time, and we were sharing. So their cities are 6%, while Nigeria as of now is 0.023%. But I'm very confident, just as we have with the telecom revolution, 12 years ago it was personal, but now it's a different story. So it's going to change.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start informally by recognizing the contributions of the last two speakers before the table. Particularly my friend Jimson, I'd like to say a big thank you for the answers you gave to all those questions. But then, the media man, I would have hoped that you would have referred to what leader has been doing for the media before asking for more. Do you remember?
I do.
Did that bring institute?
It's evergreen. If I did that, sir, I would mention other.
It's okay. We have a responsibility to engage sectorally, and that does not exclude the media. And I'm wondering if it's a real good idea to wait for a formal presentation about NIDA, the new NIDA, and NIDA's role. Because it's something I'm so passionate about, I sometimes like to talk about it just off my head. But I'll give an insight, and maybe when we come back from lunch, I will then share some materials. The new spirit is one of partnership. One I don't call PVP, I call MSP, multi-stakeholder partnership. The truth of the matter is, the primary spirit for that should be one of what I can call fraternity. So charity begins at home. I'd like to recognize first and foremost NCC for several reasons. NCC in the Telecom 2003 Act, there's an omnibus statement there about their role for the internet. NIDA has a huge mandate that cuts across everything we do in Nigeria. Our Act 2007 says that. So there's absolutely no need for agencies or governments to argue about the mandates. It's not necessary. My position is that we should always work together. Even if it concerns you alone as your own mandate, as an MBA, please be willing to work with other MBAs for one to another. So we'll continue to work in the spirit of collaboration. And I will joke that I actually spoke Igbo to Abuja, and we held hands and left that meeting. Has that happened in the past? That a DG leader and head of NCC will be talking in that way. Thank God that in this 1 year, we have been able to send this message of collaboration. Recently, maybe Monday, we were at Night Johnson. For obvious reasons, that those of us, today we're talking about internet. I've recently been calling on government to recognize bandwidth as the fourth infrastructure. The truth of the matter is, it's like building roads and thinking that that's what we need. No. For today's economy, the knowledge economy, the economy of ubiquity, you can't do without the internet and sufficient bandwidth at that. So the reality is that government is doing a lot of things to make this happen. We're all familiar with the broadband plan 2014-18. When I worry about our bandwidth availability, it pains me a lot to know that between the main players, main one, Glo, even National Chat and Co, it's not that we don't have bandwidth around. We do. But I worry about the actual out-country deployment. Of course, there are challenges, but I am calling now for an urgent forum of bandwidth service providers to work together with government and explore if there are needs for additional incentives, and explore if there is a need for government to create a special fund, an intervention fund, to drive bandwidth from the coast all the way to every part of the country. Our sister agency, I'll always mention you again, NCC and USPF, they've been doing a lot in this area, I'm aware. Including myself, if you give me free resources, I will not be responsible enough to manage them. So if you're an entrepreneur and you know that 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line, your home is at risk, you yourself, you're at risk, you will do something about it, because what am I proposing? Recently, the team of Bank of Industry MD and his top executive came to visit me, and I was very happy about that visit for several reasons. Bank of Industry has both the big ticket and small ticket funding. The good news is that the MD of Bank of Industry is an very IT savvy guy. In that meeting, he spoke IT and I spoke banking, because those who know I have a banking background. So I joked, I said, why don't we just swap our seats? You know, but the truth, the good news then is that people worry and complain about lack of funding resources. What Bank of Industry has been doing in the textile sector, in the agri sector, they can also do in the IT sector. The MSME fund of 200 billion plus or minus that has always been done every year from CBN, who says it excludes ICT entrepreneurship? It doesn't. So we have a responsibility for those of us who are associations, and for NITA as well, we have the responsibility to, as much as possible, campaign and make these opportunities well known to people, and that's where the media comes in. Spirit of partnership. The Internet Governance Forum. I recently was talking to the immediate past president of NIRA, and she will be seated on the left there. The major stakeholders for us to develop the national